A life without you. Oh no, don't make me sad right off the bat. The night passed into morning. My encounter gave me a discomfort that made dawn seem inconceivably wrong, but time went on as it should. Even the worst of nights have their end. As I went to read the morning paper, I held my breath. The headline read, "Ghastly murders continue in Whitechapel." A patrolling officer made a grueling discovery last night when he chanced upon yet another mutilated figure on the streets of Whitechapel. Found near 12 o'clock, the victim, an unidentified woman in her 30s, appears to have met a brutal end at the hands of someone of unsound mind. There were 2 visible lacerations in the neck of the victim. Police currently suspect these were made by a sharp blade, as the wounds were so penetrating that the head was partially separated from its torso. 2 similar, larger lacerations were also found across the victim's abdomen. What I don't understand is, did no one find that man's body? Because so far, in both Watson and Jack's route, Jack has only killed men? And not women? Is that why they're not linking it to these Ripper murders, even though there's some similarities between them? The article continued with a description of the victim's body and all its various wounds in extraordinary detail. But the thing that I found most striking was the headline itself. "This can't be the murder I witnessed last night." It's not anywhere to be seen here either. One would think a man's murder equally relevant news. Although now that I've said everything I've said, didn't Morin tell Jack not to leave any evidence behind? So maybe Jack cleaned up after himself. "I'd simply fled the scene and promised not to tell anyone about it. And I've held to that promise. I've not told anyone, and I shan't ever do so." I witnessed a murder. I saw his murderer. As the air became pungent with the stink of iron, he silently accepted the loss of life before him. His lack of hesitancy painted a man who believed it was right for the man to be killed. I, meanwhile, became an artist with her brush stolen from her hands. I stood and watched with no defense, no truth to paint, frozen with fear. I did not believe it was right, but still I watched. Being seen must have been a cruel miscalculation on his part. The natural thing to do, horrible as it was to think, would have been for me to be added to the bloodshed. Why am I still alive?
"Don't move. Struggle and I'll cut your thighs." "You? Why?"
Is that you, Jack?"
"That's none of your business. Listen to me. You need to leave the East End. Now. And ain't no word of what you saw here to another soul. If you do, I'll kill you. Understood?"
I knew that white handkerchief wrapped around his hand. I knew the voice, too, and his manner of speaking. They brought to mind one person. I wished I could distrust my eyes, turn away and pretend I knew nothing. If only I could. I didn't want to believe any of it, but I did. Maybe there's some truth to violent crimes being commonplace in the East End. The people there struggle so much. They barely have the money to make it through another day. I'd heard rumors of many who spent what little they had drowning their misery in strong-smelling alcohol in lodgings fit for no human being. And to be sure, this skein of murders was far from the first crime to be recorded in the area. It was a true den of injustice. But I still cannot fathom Jack being part of any of it. My mindset spiraled between the truth and denial. The paper's contents and Jack swirled about so much that even my appetite had become suppressed. Pendleton will surely notice. "Forgive me, Pendleton, but I'm not hungry this morning. I'll only have some tea if that's all right."
"Of course. If I may pour you a cup of Darjeeling, then."
My mood had been completely sullied, and my usually lively breakfast table felt bereft of cheer. Even the fragrance of the tea, which was high quality by any standard, smelled unpleasant to my nose. I feel uncomfortable. I don't know if I've ever been so conscious of his gaze before. Has he noticed I'm keeping something from him?
Is something the matter? Perhaps the tea tastes too bitter to you. Or have you finally committed to slimming your waistline?
Oh, don't be silly. Is that your attempt to pressure me into a diet?
Absolutely not. You're more than beautiful as you are.
Are you well, Pendleton? That's the nicest thing you said.
Should your corpse ever be discovered in London, no doubt the papers would eagerly report on how even your organs were works of art. Why, they would write of a stunning flower-dyed red velvet at the scene, rave in response to the rosehip tea emanating from the body. Truly, only a Whiteley could move the world with such mangled beauty even in
You may leave now.
Shan't.
My goodness.
You've no mind for danger at the best of times, so I believe it's vital to instill it bit by bit through my tales of whimsy.
Whimsy, indeed. I should sooner think you a humbug reveling in his cruelty. But anyone would lose their appetite when thinking about the Ripper case. And what of the poor women who have been killed?
We can only pray the murderer is apprehended quickly.
I agree. I went to read over the paper again. There are 3 known victims thus far. Miss Smith, Miss Tabram, and Miss Nichols.
So I've heard. That particular area has always been notably dangerous, but as a result of this case, the Yard has been patrolling it rather frequently of late.
And still the number of deaths keep climbing.
My lady, I will make myself direct one last time. Stay away from the East End. Its slums are unsanitary, and it persists in its repute as a veritable nest of crime. You saw that firsthand yesterday, did you not? Should you visit, all you will do is add to the body count. Do not, under any circumstances, investigate this case. London has the famous Sherlock Holmes, his very equally capable son, and the renowned Scotland Yard at its service. Your help is not needed.
Yes, you're right, of course. I placed the newspaper back on the table. If that man really was Jack. If only he were anyone else. If only, but I knew that he was not. This gave light to a possibility the friend in me wished to lock away forever, whilst the detective in me ruminated the evidence. What if Jack is the one responsible for these murders? Could he be the Ripper? I hated the very thought. But if he were, he would have killed me without a second thought. So why let me live? Leaving witnesses will only hurt his chances. If he's capable of murder as I've witnessed, why not do the same to me? I circled through the events, searching for an answer. As many loops and detours as I made, I found nothing. What was I supposed to do?
Well, you gave me cause for concern. For a brief moment, I thought your experiences in the East End had robbed you of your appetite. But you seem to have made short work of that tea. Have you changed your mind on getting something to eat, then?
I wonder, if I go to class, will I find Jack there? Then I won't dally a moment longer. The truth is waiting for me, and I must find it. Though I could pursue nothing on an empty stomach. I will try and have a bit of something. A sandwich. Or 2.
I shall accept your bold retraction with pleasure, my lady. Knowing when to admit your untruths is as glowing a quality for the head of our household as any, I must say.
That's quite enough. And I would like to leave for school soon after, so please ready the carriage.
As you wish.
That's better. Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper. I heard his name what felt like an infinite number of times upon setting foot on the academy grounds. He wasn't in the courtyard. Could it be he's not here yet? His desk was empty. I found it a disheartening sight under the circumstances.
Did you see this morning's paper? Another body in Whitechapel. I did. She was found face up, wasn't she? Eyes wide open, throat slashed and such. It's a terrible fright. Heard she was still bleeding when the patrolman found her. To look the way she did without making a sound must mean the culprit killed her in an instant. Experience with handling blades, too, with what he's done.
Gordon pointed at his own neck and made a distasteful slashing motion across it for emphasis.
So we've been led to believe. I don't know how they did it and fled so quickly. Would you be open to inspecting the scene on the way home from school? We may have our answer with a bit of digging. You idiot! Don't even think it! Idiot is right. I've never heard anything so foolish. I sympathize with your interest in the case, but strutting about the crime scene would impede the police's investigation. Even that aside, the East End is no place for students at play. Unless your family is absurdly queer, they would be rightfully worried to no end. A fine point, Holmes. And you're the exception. I would be the one with the absurdly queer family, much as I'm loath to admit such a thing.
You shouldn't admit such a thing at all.
Oh.
Marple and Watson both sighed with fantastic drama. Holmes, for his part, continued with indifference.
Father is prioritizing the successful resolution of this case, and the truth, over his own well-being, and I intend to do the same. I'd really rather you didn't. No case is ever too great that it's worth taxing yourself. What if one of us became the next victim? I never want to experience a graduation ceremony without all of us present. Huh. Then worry more for yourself. The odds of you failing the class are much higher than me dying. Oh, stop it! That hits me right where it hurts.
No clever retort, Watson? My, you are pitiful.
You're no better than Holmes.
Apparently it's Dunk on Watson Day again. Poor Watson.
If we're finished with Jess, I'd like to return to the case at hand. We have 3 victims. Miss Smith, Miss Tabram, and Miss Nichols. All were attacked with a bladed weapon of some description. They were also impoverished prostitutes, aged from their late 30s to early 40s, working in the Whitechapel area.
Indeed. No culprit thus far, and that is quite singular, as we've a firm enough pattern to conclude it's the work of one person. I listened closely to their conversation, feeling restless all the while.
This culprit also happens to possess extensive medical knowledge. Each time, they're sure to sever the victim's vocal cords before they can scream. It's the most plausible explanation for 3 cases with no reports of screams or sounds of any kind.
You're proposing the culprit may be part of the medical profession, then? A doctor or one's trainee, for instance? I should kindly like to point out that makes both you and your father suspects.
Come off it. I am a trainee, but I would never in my wildest imaginings do something like this. And the same for Dad, too.
I was only teasing you. Don't take it to heart.
I'm going to take it to heart if you say it with that expression. Blah. Now, I'm of the opinion the weapon being used is rather small, like a surgeon's scalpel. That is, of course, just my opinion on the issue.
Holmes then turned to face me for the first time since their discussion began.
Well, you've been unusually silent. What are your thoughts on this, Miss Whiteley?
Well, what was there for me to say?
What is it? Speak up, now.
Well, I couldn't tell anyone what I had seen in the East End. Ever. With nothing clever to substitute the truth, I stumbled on that first word before falling silent again.
I was waiting for you to conjure something unconventional, but not even a small theory on your part. You're quite meek today. I know you more as the type to blunder and bluster.
Leave me alone!
Ah! I have just the thing! How would you like something to eat, Emily? Here.
A custard tart? How nice, Watson. What's this for?
I brought it in case you needed feeding.
Thanks. In case your Emily needs feeding, carry a custard tart for emergencies. What was that?
Not like that. Whenever she eats something sweet, she has the most lovely smile and her head clears right up. And you're as glum as you were yesterday. Eat something and keep to your usual cheer, all right?
Thank you, Watson. He was so kind to think of me. Really, the thought touched my heart, even if the words were not quite right. But I will refrain for today. I want to give more serious thought to this case. My heart had sank to my bootlaces. To think this misery would be preferred to cheer. And it was preferred for one reason. If I slipped into smiles and laughter, my mind may wander all too easily into the events of yesterday. That, as I saw it, was a worse kind of misery. I hope I haven't put a damper on things. You had to have gone out of your way for this.
Nothing of the sort. You simply have your heart set on this case, don't you?
Yes. More than my heart. If Jack was a part of this case, then I wanted to keep my focus rigid till its conclusion. Actually, speaking of rigidness and detectiveness, how are we doing? Oh, whoa, 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 okay. That answers that question. My eyes wandered to his still empty desk a second time. I don't know if it's something I'll ever be able to forget. I can't tell anyone. I'm all alone in this. How I wish I could forget. If I did, I would have no reason to suspect Jack. Mr. Mackenzie then entered the classroom, disrupting my darkened thoughts. Good morning, Mr. Mackenzie.
Take your seats, class. Now, I've spoken of this a number of times in the past, but with the recent murders taking place, London is no longer considered a safe city. Take care not to stray close to the East End, and try not to go out at night unless absolutely necessary. Lastly, I do realize this is sudden, but I have a bit of sad news.
Oh no, I'm not gonna see him again. He turned towards Jack's desk.
Jack Millers will be taking a leave of absence until further notice.
The room ruptured into rumors and whispers and immediate nonsense.
I've been told an illness he's been plagued with for some time has taken a turn for the worse, and the treatment could take the remainder of the year.
No! I didn't want to believe it any more than I wanted to believe anything else that had been happening. A chronic illness? That's so sudden. Too sudden! He's never once mentioned such a thing to me, not in person nor in his letters.
I wish him a full recovery, of course, as I'm sure we all do. It would be lovely if he could return and study with us again. That is the only bit of sad news I have, thank God.
Having said his piece, he then swiftly propped his notes upwards and gave them a tidy shuffling before retiring.
Does he think he's some kind of funny man? He's always looked frail, but not to this extent.
I've never seen him eating lunch, come to think of it.
Still, this is an odd time to stop coming to class, isn't it? Right when the killer on every man's lips is Jack the Ripper.
Please, let's not go that far. Those whispers disturbed me, and unable to come to his proper defense, I bit the inside of my lip to allow some strange comfort. They were so quick to turn on someone over an unfounded rumor. It was maddening. I could bear my own shadows. I was content to shoulder the responsibility that came as a witness to the unwitnessable. It was the ready condemnation from others who knew nothing that hurt so much more. Pardon me, Marple, but has Jack ever taken leave for this before? Never. As far as I recall, he hasn't missed a single day of school until today. And I've certainly heard nothing about him taking ill. Oh. Shall we ask Mr. Mackenzie what he knows during lunch, dear? If we know from what Jack suffers, we'll learn how soon he can return. Yes, that's an idea.
We shall join you then. The situation's aroused my curiosity as much as it has any other. Don't mind him. He won't listen once he's set his mind to something.
Holmes. Watson. Are you too worried as well?
Don't be daft. The Ripper case what it is. His convenient leave from the Academy is a mystery worth dabbling into in itself.
Your wit makes you wicked, Holmes. But if you wish to join us, by all means. We agreed to approach Mr. Mackenzie during our lunch hour. This was usually not a particularly difficult task, and today was no exception. We successfully apprehended him on his way to lunch in the hallway. Sir, might we have a moment to speak?
Of course. What brings you here?
It's about Jack, you see. Would you happen to know what ails him? If he's been hospitalized, we would love to pay him a visit.
I see. You wanted to ask about Mr. Millers.
His voice grew weak.
I'm afraid I don't know what's happened or where he's been taken. It's possible he's receiving treatment from home, too.
Is that so? Then may we ask for his address? His features then slumped into something similarly weak, a grimace akin to what one might put on when they've tasted something unpleasant.
Miss Whiteley, are you aware that Jack is from the East End?
I am, sir, and that it's a rather sore point for him.
I don't speak of the subject lightly, but do you also remember this morning when I mentioned the Ripper case?
Oh, yes. I also read about it in the paper. Word has grown quite rapidly in recent days.
Then you know that it's also far too dangerous to visit the East End. Your intentions are very kind, and I commend them, but I cannot in good conscience allow my students to visit. Is this for now? Or would you say this at the East End even if there were no murderers skulking about its streets? How to put this?
There's something suspicious going on.
If I'm honest, I know very little about the situation. I only received a brief message from his father this morning.
Did you? Is it all right to ask what it said?
I don't see the harm in that.
Jack's condition, a rather serious chronic? Mr. Mackenzie had the letter on his person, to our good fortune. No time was wasted in presenting it to us. Jack's condition, a rather serious chronic illness, has taken a sudden turn for the worse, and so he will be taking leave for the remainder of the year. Henry Millers.
Who is Henry Millers? Jack's father? Yes. Adoptive father, to be more precise. Though I've never met the man for myself. I'm only aware that Mr. Millers was born in poverty, which led to his father taking him in.
So we can't even visit our sick friend.
There has been some worrisome talk amongst the staff regarding Jack for a while. The East End is a horrid slum. It's unsanitary as they come. Disease runs rampant. Many believe it would be best to expel him, or at the very least force him to live in the dormitory. It pains me to stand by this as things are, but no, you cannot visit your sick friend. No one can. I understand how this must feel to you, very much so, but I shan't tell you where he lives. Understood, sir. Then you do affirm he lives in the East End, yes? What? Have you listened to a word I've said, Holmes? You are not to visit him. Think of the danger. One footstep in the East End alone carries far too great a risk. Allowing students to visit Whitechapel would be insanity. Ah, so he lives in Whitechapel.
Dang, go Holmes!
Oh no!
If only all criminals...
Excuse me. Choking on spit. Let's try that again.
If only all criminals were as easy to goad into a confession as you, sir.
Good lord! That's no way to speak to your teacher! You needn't worry. We are assisting Inspector Lestrade with his investigation, as you know, so this won't be our first experience in Whitechapel. I should have known you would prove yourselves tricksters. My students are certainly a clever lot.
With a smile that proved half impressed, half bitter, Mr. Mackenzie politely excused himself before continuing on his way.
I do think it's best if Holmes and I are the only ones who go. The victims of the Ripper case have been women, so... well... if we find anything, we'll be sure to inform you.
Very well. Thank you.
I accepted their proposal with reluctance. Inwardly, I held to my concern for Jack. With nothing more to be done, we returned to the classroom.
So what happened? Tell us! What did Mr. Mackenzie say?
Gordon and Faber had curiosity in abundance, and they pounced on us without a moment to spare as we entered, eyes hungry for answers.
Oh, about what?
Jack! What else? He's taken ill very suddenly, and we cannot visit him. That is all. Were you not paying attention to his warning this morning? That's not how the rumor making the rounds has it. Why, they suspect he may be the Jack the Ripper.
I was speechless. My deepest concern that I refused to voice rattled my heart from skipping to thudding twice as hard, and then he said it before me aloud. And so boldly at that.
What's this? You really believe that? It's all too dodgy for my liking. Dodgy, perhaps, but unsurprising. The day another murder enraptures the public, Jack disappears. Anyone with a shred of common sense would think it. And we have some who have expressed suspicion for him from day one. If he didn't want to be labeled a suspect, then he should have come to class.
Holmes.
That said, it is a rumor. Nothing more. Letting it affect you only serves to strengthen the whispers around you. Something he's aware of, I'm sure.
Holmes's snap was accompanied by visible irritation, a rarity for one of his composure. The situation confounded him to no end, and for a man who took great pleasure in connecting the dots, this lack of answers was less an engaging challenge and more a frustrating folly.
That is true, and I do pity him to some extent. There aren't many here in attendance from the East End. That alone subjected him to some appalling treatment. Fellow students telling him to stay away or they'll catch something, pointing the finger at him if something's gone missing or was stolen. It's all very sad. And it's likely why no one seems to have any issue with suspecting him this time as well.
What shall I say? Stand up for him. He would appreciate it.
Jack would never do any such thing.
Was that to reassure my friends? Or was that more for me?
He's a good friend to all of us, isn't he? We've had some wonderful times together in this very classroom, in fact. And you still choose to doubt him. Do you?
I met eyes with each and every person, and each of every one of them responded with incertitude, as if they hadn't considered the thought. Had they cast their suspicions on a friend? No one argued otherwise, and I was glad for it. Yay!
We shouldn't be bought so easily by nonsense. What we should be doing instead is praying for his health.
Capital! A fantastic counter, Emily! I couldn't agree more. True. I hadn't even thought of what it meant to attend here as an East Ender. I've been giving him something of a wide berth myself. I wonder how many times I've heard him without even noticing.
Watson took to the question strongly, his eyes downcast in thought.
I have faith he'll return to school in no time, And when he does, we'll get on even better than we did before. You too, Watson. So don't look so troubled.
That would be nice. Thanks, Emily. And you believe that with all your heart, Miss Whiteley?
Absolutely I do. And you do as well?
I should like to, naturally. Well, let us be going, Watson. All right. But I'll tell you what. He's a lucky bloke to have you fretting over him. If we see Jack in the East End, I'll be sure to pass on what you said.
Thank you. I will collect that heart affection prematurely, then.
I would love that. Take care, you two.
We shall. All we will be doing is pursuing the truth.
Holmes and Watson then left the classroom together. And off they go. Oh, Jack. Is it really an illness that's kept you from school? Or could it be something else?
Classes had ended for the day. There were no more lessons to act as a healthy distraction to my worries, and with two close confidants leaving for the scene, my unease shuffled to the surface of my mind.
There's still a bit of time before I need to return home. Perhaps some reading will suit me.
The Academy's library possessed an enormous collection of books, including those gathered by the Academy itself, and those donated to it by the government.
East End. Whitechapel.
My fingers played along the shelves, occasionally tapping the spine of an intriguing title before settling on and opening a book detailing modern history. The shuffle of a page here, the scratching of my pen there. I skimmed and noted whatever I noticed into my diary. So deep in my concentration had I been that I barely noticed my surroundings. Oh, hello.
Miss Whiteley?
It gave me a start to see Lupin peering through a neighboring bookshelf.
Lupin! Have you come to do some reading as well?
No, I haven't. I've only come to return a book that's near overdue. May I ask, Miss Whiteley, if you've come to investigate the Ripper case?
Yes. I hate how ignorant I've been of my surroundings. I can't personally see the crime scenes like Holmes and Watson, but this is simple enough work.
That wasn't a lie, but it was an incomplete truth. The research helped to occupy my thoughts with facts, trivia, and the like, which I vastly prefer to the popular guesswork relating to Jack.
Interesting. You're copying a newspaper, are you? What is the book itself about?
The East End.
You've really taken to the case, I see. I do know a bit about the East End myself, if you'd like a more personal account. I've, been there to assist with some sizable cases in the past. Jack the Ripper is not the first to cause such a stir, sadly. If anything, criminal activity is a never-ending part of life there.
It's that bad?
I wish I could say otherwise. Theft, murder, and intimidation are a part of life for those without wealth. It's where those who plunge into poverty as a result of London's industrial sector beginning to boom now live.
And he was sad. More sad than I had ever seen from him before.